Hey everyone, it's Dark Knight. Today we're going to talk about a controversial topic of should you build in production. So I get this question all the time. Can I just build in a prod? I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? Sometimes nothing. Sometimes it could be catastrophic. So the answer is it depends, but I would say build in a sandbox first. So the first thing I'm going to talk about here is reports. Yes, reports can be built in prod. It makes sense. It's where the data is. You can always build in a sandbox too if you really want to, but I say reports, totally fine. Building those in production makes perfect sense there. Custom objects, on the other hand, I would say always build those in a sandbox first, especially if you have other sandbox environments. Those other environments may not have those objects in them yet. You could duplicate the objects, cause different things to happen. So I would say build them in a sandbox first and then push them up the chain. Custom fields is very similar to custom objects, especially if those other environments. You want to make sure that you have that. Another reason why you don't typically want to build custom fields directly in production is because you can get a flood of emails from your user saying, hey, why is this new field here? What is it used for? It may not be what your intent is, and then cause you more headache and have to go explain what that is to a bunch of users. Automation, flows, approvals, any of that type of stuff, always build and test that in Sandbox first. You should always build those stuff out in Sandbox. Way too many things can go wrong. You don't want it affecting your users. You don't want to be creating a bunch of records. You don't want to be deleting records. You don't want to be updating a bunch of things. You don't want to be causing those infinite loops. Test that stuff out in a sandbox first, then promote it to production after you've tested and vetted it and make sure it works. Before I move on to the rest of the topics, please like and subscribe. We do produce Salesforce tips every week. Validation rules. Once again, build and test is on a sandbox first. If you build in production, you can prevent people from saving records if your rule is incorrect. If you put a not where it needs to equal true, if your criteria is just off, you can prevent your production users from being successful if you build a bad validation rule in production. So build it on the sandbox first, test it out, make sure it does what it needs to do, and then you can promote that to production. Any type of development that's Lightning Web Components, any Apex, Visualforce pages, any of that stuff. First of all, you can't really do any of that stuff in production anyways, so always build it and test in a sandbox first. So some of the benefits of sandboxes, you get to try the new item to build. It doesn't break production. That's the key there. Any of those release updates that come out, you can always test out the new updates, make sure that they don't break any stuff you built. You can build out your proof of concepts. If you need data, you can always see the data with these orgs. Or if you have a full or partial sandbox, you can pull data in from production when it's created or refreshed. So if you need to have an environment that has some data in there, you can use one of those options to get some data in there. You can always just create your own data. And what's really cool is if you build everything in Sandbox, you can prep your release, and then you can send an email saying, hey, on Friday, this field is coming in on this object, and explain what it's for. So you can build a little release preview for your users before that they get all the information. So you can push all the updates and then let the users know, hey, this is what's coming on this particular day. So when they see the information, they're not overwhelmed with it. They are prepared for it. You're prepared for it, and it'll cut down on some of the hassle you have to do with doing some of those email communications back and forth. You know why the data is there. You know why those data points are there, and you can explain to them why it's there. So here's a couple of things that I say you can build in production or a sandbox. Reports, you can build them in prod if you want. Dashboards, build them in prod. List views, go ahead and build them in prod. Groups or queues, you can build them in prod. I'd say probably build this in Sandbox first and make sure they work, especially if you're using those in conjunction with the sharing rules, profiles and roles. Probably build this in production too, unless you're using sharing again. They may impact some things. Or if you have a net new org and you just build everything from scratch, you have no active users in there, you can probably build things in production. Just be mindful of any of that technical debt you may build in there by accident. So if you build the wrong field, you build a field that's no longer used, make sure you remove those things right away. That way you don't build a bunch of stuff in your org that you don't need. So my biggest conclusion here is build and test in the Sandbox first. It's going to make the world a difference to you. It may take a little bit longer in the whole entire process, but it's going to save you tons of time later when you're deploying things and you're making changes. You want to do a lot of that back and forth because you have that history of why you built certain things, and you tested and vetted it, and you didn't break things in production. Not saying you can't break things again later on when you actually get to production, but you've done your due diligence to try to prevent as much as possible before you go to production. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you next time.